no video.
Radio's?
No, that's radio. Sunlink is video and sound, and then when they get the Facebook Live on Monday, that'll be radio sound. But they're gonna put it up live.
Hey, Chris is about to sit down and finish reading. Feel better.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, buddy.
Go ahead and focus in on him.
I know we're gonna have a live studio audience.
Get on camera.
Yeah. Look better. I don't know. Okay.
Okay, this should be fine.
How are we looking good?
Oh, this is gonna work perfect.
Should it?
This song will end in like
2.5 minutes.
it'll literally end like the same time. I'll hit next just to be safe, but
Yeah, I think everything's good now. Cameras are good?
We did.
Okay.
As are we.
Camera 1 phone.
turn my phone on.
You can hear? Max can hear.
I got it.
Okay, now
Can you
you're
hear
good.
me? There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Start. How's that? Is it finished? Okay. You want me to do the zoom in? I don't have that much room though, because I'm not far in the back, but I can do a little sneak in, I can sneak it in. Give me a countdown, we're about a minute away. We're about a minute away, guys.
Did you guys have a Twitter handle?
Yeah. Border Battle OSU.
Okay. All of them.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Count me down, okay?
And then I'm just gonna go live once our thing starts.
15 seconds. And we'll go to the open first, and then we'll, if you'll watch me, I'll cue you, okay?
Sounds good.
I'm gonna have to cue them, so I won't be able to give you that move. 30 seconds away for the open.
What really irks me about radio around here is the lack of respect for the Big Ten.
The Packers are closer than Detroit. If they're when Rodgers comes back, I don't want the Packers to be closer for that reason because Rodgers will come back.
Now, live from Studio 318, it's Border Battle with Jourdan the Great King and CJ the Viking Notch.
Welcome in, everyone. This is the first episode live on Sunlink Channel 112, KXZY Student Run Radio here at Oklahoma State University. Welcome into Studio 318. I'm Jourdan King. He's Chris CJ the Viking Notch. Chris, great to be here the first day. We should explain something to our viewers real quick. Those of you who haven't followed us from the start, the reason we have a Minnesota and a Wisconsin logo in the intro is, you guessed it, I'm from Wisconsin. He's from Minnesota. That's where the color combo comes from, all of that good stuff. Chris, glad to be beside you once again. And we're going to jump right into it here because we got a packed show. We got a guest coming up, Jourdan, Ocali's sports editor. He's joining us first show here. We're gonna keep the guests coming strong for you as well. So, Chris, let's jump into it with some Oklahoma State news. So we're going to talk about football because this is a football school. This is a football state. All right. So the pre-draft bowls, there's 3 real big ones: the NFLPA Bowl, the Senior Bowl, and the East-West Shrine Game. The biggest one is the Senior Bowl. Oklahoma State sends 3 players: Mason Rudolph, Marcel Aitman, James Washington. Rudolph not able to practice. He had that foot sprain from the Camping World Bowl, but the other 2 seemed to have good weeks. What jumped out at you the most? Who helped himself the most this week at the East-West or at the Senior Bowl? Pardon me.
I think Aitman did. I felt Aitman actually had more to prove. Anyways, everyone knows what James Washington can do. He was voted the best wide receiver in all of college. Coaches know what they're going to get out of him. I think Aitman, it was his time to really shine and show that he has all the tools. He can be an NFL wide receiver.
Yeah, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate here too because I think Aitman did a great job as well. But here's something that kind of is flipped on the head, and I don't think a lot of Oklahoma State fans know it, is most scouts actually think James Washington is going to be the worst pro receiver compared to our man Marcel Aitman. Here's why. Marcel Aitman has the NFL body. He's pushing 6'4", 6'5". He's got big hands. He's got long arms. The biggest thing for James Washington this week, the thing that he proved, was that he can be a physical receiver. Everyone knew he was going to run over 21 miles an hour and be one of the fastest receivers in the NFL when he gets drafted. It was, can he go and be a physical receiver, dominate like Aitman does on third down, and get separation? He was able to do all of those things, and he might have vaulted himself into the top 2 receiver conversation, which I think no one expected, because you look at Calvin Ridley from Alabama, he's got a pro-style body. Some of these other guys, there's Cortland Sutton from SMU, he's got a pro-style body. Marcel Aitman's got a pro-style body. James Washington doesn't. So I think he had a lot to prove, and I think he did a great job proving it to that point. You look at the other side, because this is, after all, border battle. So let's talk about OU just a little bit, because they did have Baker Mayfield, of course. Everyone knows that. What do you think he did for himself in the Senior Bowl practices? He's probably not going to play because he's got to come back for some family issues. Him and Oba Okoronkwo looked like they had fantastic weeks.
Yeah, and really, I think it's more of all they did to help themselves was just cement where they were at. The biggest thing with Baker, I guess, is just the off-the-field stuff, making sure he can kind of disengage that. But again, I think it's more just a cement where he is in his spot, in the quarterback rankings, just where he belongs.
Right. I agree with you there. And Okoronkwo, I think, might have jumped himself into a lock of the first or second round, which is important for him. A couple small school guys, Marcus Davenport, maybe to keep an eye on for my Green Bay Packers. I think he could be a good spot there. UTSA, he's from University of Texas San Antonio. Probably the best player to come out of a Texas university, coming out of UTSA, which is pretty incredible. Let's switch over to the East-West Shrine Bowl. You got Zach Crabtree, Trey Flowers, and Brad Lumblade. I heard Lumblade had an incredible week. Brad Lumblade, Green Bay needs some offensive linemen. He has the name. He looks like he should play in Wisconsin. Let's draft him, Packers. Slide him in next to other Oklahoma State alumni, Lane Taylor. I think there's no way, but I think he had a great week. What did you think from the 2 offensive linemen and then Trey Flowers at safety?
Well, I think Lumblade's a great story to begin with. He was a walk-on. He put in the work. He realized he may, it goes to show the work he has put in. I believe he deserves where he's at. So do I believe with the other guys as well. It's just one of those things. Again, it's that I'm all about consistency, I guess. I'm showing that you can make the plays in the NFL that you need to make. And I felt so far those 3 did a phenomenal job as well.
Yeah, and I don't know. I haven't heard much, which sometimes no news is good news because it could be bad news, but I haven't heard much about Crabtree. I'm assuming he did well. He's a guy that just grinds it out as well, much like Lumblade. But I think Lumblade helped himself, and Trey Flowers, I think he's an NFL player. I don't think there's much else to say about it. He's not a top half of the draft guy, but he's a guy that can step in, and he's not going to be a plug and play. You're not going to start him day one, but not every draft player, not every draft pick that you make is going to be like that. So let's look at it whole of all these pre-draft bowls. The Oklahoma State didn't have anyone in the NFLPA bowl, so out of these, 5, 6 guys, if you throw in Rudolph, he was there for measurements and weigh-ins and interviews. Out of these 6, who helped themselves the most?
Man, I still think Aitman. Again, just because of his number never really being called. Like, it was called at times here at OSU, but it wasn't all the time. James Washington was the guy to look at. So I feel Aitman really showed that he, again, he has the size and the tools, and obviously we know he can be physical, and that he does have, I guess, the fundamentals and what it takes.
Yeah, I guess I'll go Aitman because I think when you look at Aitman, the biggest problem that he had was he wasn't allowed to show his consistency. He was hurt last year, and he comes in and steps in this year and plays well, but everyone says, well, is that something he can carry over future? And I think there were a lot of question marks there. He showed he can. He can put together a consistent week of practice. He's a beast over the middle, and he's a red zone threat. Red zone threats essentially mean you're useful as soon as you get drafted. You don't have to learn these crazy route trees right away. Right. You don't have to be on the field 75% of the time to get good production. You can be on for a play or two and have 2 touchdowns, and that's the way it is. So I think Aitman, to your point, really had a great week. Who hurt themselves the most, if anyone?
I don't know. I guess I don't know if there's someone that really sticks out that hurt themselves in any ways. Kind of to go off of Crabtree, I guess. I know he kind of had an injury issue too. I guess I felt like this year here, he kind of was in and out at times. I think he dealt with his turf toe and all that. But I don't know. I really don't know if anyone really hurt themselves all that much.
I don't think there's one that jumps off the page, but let me throw one out there, and I'm sure you knew this was coming. I'm sure everyone that knows me knew this was coming. I'm going to say Mason Rudolph hurt himself the most. I'm not a huge Rudolph fan to begin with. I think he's a fine player, whatever. That's all fine and dandy, but we got some good quarterbacks, not great ones, but we got some really solid quarterbacks at the top of this draft. So you know what that means? When all the quarterbacks are bunched up, scouts are going to start to nitpick. And when you start to nitpick, a guy coming in and getting his hand measured at 9 1/8 inch, that's not good. That's not what you want. If you're a quarterback, there are a lot of concerns about small-handed quarterbacks in the NFL. You look at some of the guys that come out, it's height, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, and it's hand size and stuff like that. Whereas these other athletic positions, running back, wide receiver, it's about the 40, it's about can you run routes, it's about can you block, all the intangibles. There's other things you look at and nitpick for a quarterback. And quite frankly, you add this to maybe the lack of arm strength that some scouts have about Mason Rudolph, and it's not something that adds up and really gets you hyped. I don't think he helped himself, which part of that's about the injury. But to not practice and still get docked by a lot of scouts is not something that you're obviously a goal that you're going in looking for, but we'll see how it goes because some of these quarterbacks are looking like they're taking the next step forward, Baker Mayfield included, as awful as that is to say here in Stillwater. But let's keep on this quarterback train because one other question I wanted to ask you was, you saw Josh Allen in the Senior Bowl, you saw Baker Mayfield, and then you saw kind of a bunch of 3rd or 4th tier quarterbacks. Who should be ranked ahead out of those two? Because obviously Rose and Darnold didn't go.
I again, like you said, with people not liking this answer, I still think it's Mayfield. Again, Allen was one of those people, especially after the hype came from his junior year, where he was he came out of the woodwork, came out of nowhere, and then this year I felt like, granted, it doesn't help if you're a good quarterback, you don't have a lot of a good supporting cast. I don't feel like Wyoming was that great of a team, I guess, to begin with. So I felt like that was part of his issue, was not having the help with that. But I would still put Mayfield ahead. Here's a couple things I want to talk about. I don't think Mayfield's supporting cast was that great either. Who even heard of Hollywood Brown before this? Yeah. Before, Gus Johnson and
Bedlam made him an all-star in the state of Oklahoma. I'm not going to say that they don't have talent. Okay, they had a great tight end. They have 2 great running backs and some great young talent at wide receiver, but nothing of experience in Oklahoma. Here's the thing about Josh Allen. I really dislike anyone trying to protect Josh Allen by saying your teammates weren't that good. He graduated, and there would have been plenty of Division I schools that would have taken him as a graduate transfer. So that is you cannot say that if you're Josh Allen. That's your own fault. You decided to come out instead of grad transfer. So I think that is something that's big. And also, here's a quote my brother sent me from one of the scouts from the Senior Bowl about Josh Allen. Josh Allen, he's always known for his arm strength, maybe not the accuracy. He said, this was a quote from a scout, Josh Allen could throw it through a barn. That's how powerful his arm is, if he can hit said barn. So I mean that pretty much sums up what Josh Allen is as a passer. He's got the arm strength to take it to the next level. It's can you fit it in the windows that are a heck of a lot more tight in the NFL than they are in the Mountain West or whatever conference Wyoming's out there playing in that no one knows about.
Well, so then let me ask you this. Do you feel it would have been in Allen's best interest to actually stay and be a graduate transfer? Is that kind of what you're thinking, that he's almost better off kind of getting his tools figured out?
It depends if he wants to be a franchise quarterback or if he wants to get paid. Because this way, he's getting paid. He's getting drafted high. He's getting paid. That way, I mean, you go back, that's a risk, because not only are you risking injury, you're risking actually flopping at a big Division I school, and then you're running into some problems. So I think when you look at it, Baker Mayfield's probably the more complete player, but Josh Allen's more pro-ready than anyone else. And you kind of compare that to, like, Mason Rudolph, because, like, I think Mason Rudolph's more pro-ready than Baker Mayfield is, and it bugs me when people say, well, you look at the offense Mason Rudolph ran. That's not you can't translate that to the NFL. Well, then you got to say the same thing about Baker Mayfield, and very rarely do people do that. So I think when you start talking about this nitpicking that I was talking about before, you got to be fair about it. That's the biggest thing. Just a quick note on a couple of my Badgers. We'd talk about some Gophers if they were in any of these pre-draft bowl games. But Troy Fumagalli looked like he had a great bowl for Wisconsin. He's a tight end, maybe vaulted himself over Mike Gesicki from Penn State. That's important. And then a couple of defenders that look like they could actually play in the NFL, which has always been kind of the issue with these Wisconsin players, is can they play at the next level? They're so dominant in college, but can they play at the next level? Well, we're going to catch a break. When we come back, as I said, special treat for y'all. We got Ocali sports editor and men's basketball beat reporter Cam Jourdan. He's going to talk some Cowboy basketball. Plus, stick around later. We got some thoughts on the MLB Hall of Fame. You're listening to the Border Battle on OSU Student Radio.
Hi, I'm Gina Noble, and I'm the mayor of Stillwater, Oklahoma. Stillwater, Oklahoma is anything but still. We are a vibrant community, and we are conveniently located near Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Wichita, Kansas. We're the home of the Oklahoma State Cowboys, and we serve as the cultural, economic, and athletic hub for North Central Oklahoma. In fact, several Quality of Life magazines have recognized Stillwater as one of the nation's 100 top places to live and one of the best places to golf. Established in the land run in 1889, Stillwater is a safe, vibrant community. It boasts a great educational system from K through 12, all the way up to our world-class university, Oklahoma State University. We have an exceptional downtown with a strong entrepreneurial spirit, numerous city parks and trails, and our medical resources are second to none. Stillwater is a wonderful place to begin your career, to start a business, to raise a family, or to retire. We invite you to visit Stillwater because we are anything but still.
Think you're not involved in your community? Think again. Spending your money with local businesses is more than an economic choice. It's a way you can have a say in the look and feel of your hometown. This spring, I invite you to shop in downtown Stillwater. Downtown Stillwater is home to locally owned shops, boutiques, eateries, and dependable professionals that you can trust. Find the perfect gift for your graduate, have a delicious meal with mom, or just stop in to enjoy great spring savings. By creating a demand for local goods and services, you can ensure a place for the local businesses that help give our community character and keep it unique. On behalf of Downtown Stillwater, thank you for shopping local.
Welcome back. This is the Border Battle. We're coming right back here. We got Cam Jourdan, Ocala sports editor, with us. Cam, we just saw the basketball game, the highlight, the final shot from Trae Young, the court storm, everything that goes along with that. You were in the building. There's been a lot of criticism, I think it's fair to say, about the crowds at GIA. What was it like when they beat Oklahoma in Bedlam?
Since I've been here, that was the best atmosphere that I've ever been a part of. It was pretty interesting because at the beginning of the game, OSU got off to the really quick start, 25-6. That place was raucous. It was rowdy, as GIA is supposed to be. Then as the game wore on, OU fought their way back into the game, and it kind of got a little sloppy. The crowd seemed disinterested at some points, but also their team giving up a 19-point lead. Then at the end of the game, Kendall Smith hits the tying shot. Trae Young misses. Place went nuts. In overtime, when Jeffrey Carroll hit the go-ahead three when OSU took the lead for good, that place was – there was a couple times where it was so loud you couldn't hear yourself think. And it was wondering, well, where is this at? I understand why it's not going to be here for Charlotte or Mississippi Valley State, but why wasn't this atmosphere here for West Virginia or for Texas or for Iowa State?
Is it always going to be that way, that it's just the Bedlam game? And maybe this is unfair for me to say it, but is it always this way that, like, Bedlam or number 1 ranked Kansas or a top 5 ranked team, is that what it's always going to take to get the crowd rowdy, like at GIA?
I think it's still taking a while. I think people are still trying to buy into Coach Mike Boynton's system. He's done a great job so far. He's a great guy. He's very personable. It's gonna take some time for especially alumni to get back on the bandwagon, so to say, and to really hop in and join what he's trying to do, change the culture, to try to find his niche and the team's niche with what he has, because he doesn't even have a recruiting class here yet. Of course, he helped bring Brandon Averette from Stephen F. Austin. Of course, that was Brad Underwood as well. But he's still trying to get his players in here, get his recruits in here, and that's the really big thing that he's trying to do. Is it going to take a top 5 team every week? Hopefully, crowds always show up for those ones, but it shouldn't always have to be the best of the best to do that.
So you kind of touched on a little bit with Mike Boynton. Do you feel he's exceeding expectations right now with the basketball team, or do you feel it's kind of right where everyone kind of pictured they'd be?
Where I pictured they'd be, they're right about there. I don't think that they've been above their ceiling. They've won the games they should have won, and they've lost the games they probably should have lost. When you look at the Baylor game, they probably could have ended up winning that one and down in Waco. Even the Texas Tech game, being up by 12 and it points 15 points in the second half, you can't lose that game. They're right about where they should be. They have little things here and there. Their second half adjustments aren't working well. You have, I think, in the 6 of the past 7 games, you've had a player score his career high against OSU, and that's not great at all. We'll see if that changes against Arkansas tomorrow.
You mentioned a couple things that I liked. You mentioned the culture around Mike Boynton, and you mentioned one player that I think exemplifies that culture that he helped bring here. That's Brandon Averette. I think Mike Boynton, when you're thinking about Mike Boynton, I think what draws me to him so much is he teaches a lot like what Bo Ryan taught at Wisconsin. It's the fundamentals, it's defense, and it's trying to be efficient. And when you look at Brandon Averette, he's some guy that not a lot of fans are fond of because he's not an offensive player, but he brings it hard-nosed defense every time down the court, and he's a leader, and he's a spark plug. Now, the other player that I think exemplifies this the most, certainly not Jeffrey Carroll, it's Mitchell Solomon. That play that everyone, of course, national media is going to talk about it because it's a senior and a freshman and diving on the floor and everything like that. But that's the brand that he's trying to build. Correct? Is that like what he's trying to build here? Because it certainly seems like those are the 2 players that have really bought in.
It's definitely hard to find unselfish basketball players nowadays. You're always going to find kids coming out of high school who want to score 30 points, who want to play with the ball in their hands most of the time. And there's kids, example Trae Young, who are really, really good and can do that. But it's really hard to find 12, 13 guys who will come in and buy into the team and really do what a coach wants them to do. Coach Boynton has really got this team to do that. Now, unfortunately, you have Devon Dillard and Zach Dawson who are no longer with the team, but he's found the group of 12 guys that he has with him now have bought into the system. They believe in what their coach is doing, and there's been bumps across the road. They, like I said, they're 3-5 in Big 12 play with a couple of those games that they've led at halftime, and then they've dropped it in the second half. I think there's 3. I think the Kansas State game, the Baylor game, and the Texas Tech game this past Tuesday are the best examples of the fact that OSU is a couple shots away or a better defensive assignment here or there away from being possibly 6-2 or 5-3 in Big 12 play.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because you look at those Big 12 standings, they're currently tied with TCU, but you look at Kansas State and Texas Tech, and if they win either of those games, they're all of a sudden in 5th place. Like, just if they win one of those games, they're in 5th place, tied, and have the tiebreaker over both those teams in Kansas. So they're so close. What is it about them down the stretch? Because I think that's a question that I asked Chris recently earlier this week is down the stretch, what's the problem?
We talked to yesterday, and we talked to Coach and Jeffrey Carroll and Brandon Averett. We talked a little bit about what the issues have been down the stretch, kind of like you're saying. They're just saying that they're bought in for the whole 20 minutes of the first half. They're really into the game. And then when the second half comes around, they kind of drop off a little bit. They'll get lackadaisical, and they possibly just lose focus for 10, 15 minutes. That's obviously an issue because you can't do that in this league. The Big 12 is crazy. It's arguably the best conference in basketball. It'll be a really good test tomorrow when they face Arkansas, who's about in the same boat as they are. Arkansas started really well, and they're 4-4 in SEC play, so they're a middle of the road team. But it's going to really take everybody buying in for the full 40 minutes because you can't let Jarrett Culver, a freshman, score 25 on you. You can't let Manu Lecomte score 30 on you for Baylor. Even Trae Young is scoring 48. Trae Young is going to score 40s again this year, but you can't let him score 48 in that game, and OU probably doesn't get back into it. Someone's got to really step up on the defensive end. Probably Kendall Smith, Brandon Averett, Lindy Waters, Tavares Shine. They really have to step up and help each other because when they're switching between zone and man, these guards are finding ways to still score the ball effectively. And OSU just has to find a way to lock down and man up on them or play a tighter zone and say, I'm not going to let you score.
Again, we're with Cameron Jourdan of the Ocali Sports section. He's a sports editor and basketball beat reporter. So, Cam, when it comes down to it, is it too early to start thinking about the NCAA tournament for this team? And do you see this team currently, the way they're playing, as a tournament team? Because I think that's a question a lot of people are starting to mull here in Stillwater.
Right now, I don't think they're a tournament team. If you win the game, I discussed this with Mark Cooper, the Tulsa World. We were talking with this after the Kansas State game in Manhattan a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about what does OSU have to do to get in the tournament. We were thinking you got to win at least. They won 9 games last year and got in. Probably gonna have to win 9 or 10 this year to get in. So OSU's sitting at 3-5, so they have to win 7 more. So you probably can't drop one of your next 5 home games, and you're gonna have to win a couple on the road. Fortunate for them, they have TCU on the road, who's 3-5. You're gonna have to find a way to beat them. They're missing. The Horned Frogs are missing Jalen Fisher. He's out for the season with an injury, arguably their best player. And then you're going to have to find someone else who you can beat on the road. Iowa State, they haven't played on the road. West Virginia, they haven't played on the road. And they haven't played Kansas on the road. So one of those teams, and also Texas, who they've beat on the Tavares Shine Tippin, you're going to have to find a couple of those teams that you can knock off in their building. And you can't blow a 12-point halftime lead, example, like they did against Texas Tech, or you can't blow a halftime lead like you did against Baylor. And, I mean, it goes on and on. You just have to lock in the second half. And whether that comes down to adjustments, I'm not sure.
So, I mean, when you're talking about that upcoming schedule, some of those road teams you listed are incredibly good at home. You think Kansas at Fogg, you think West Virginia at home. Does it come down to, like, those games against Iowa State, like at Iowa State, at Texas? Are those must-wins at this point if you're have aspirations for the tournament?
Definitely. If OSU wants to get to the tournament, it has to win at Iowa State. It has to win probably at Texas, and you maybe even need to try to find a way to win at either one of TCU, West Virginia, or Kansas.
Which is kind of a tall task for this team.
That's probably pretty tall. They can do it. The Cowboys have proven that they can play on the road. They play well for 30-minute stretches. It's the 10-minute stretches where they get a little bit unfocused and not locked in that teams are getting back into it. And so they have to really find a way to dig in their heels and stop because people are going to be coming up and trying to take back what's their home court. and that's what's happened
Right.
these past couple games.
And so obviously we know what's coming up. Like you said, Arkansas is coming up, and then we also have TCU and Kansas at Kansas. Would you say out of the TCU-Kansas game, obviously we know they're big, but would the Kansas game, if they win, mean more than like a TCU victory, being Kansas is ranked as good as they are? You know, Oklahoma, they beat OU here in Stillwater. OU beat Kansas. So, you know, with that, is beating Kansas, you know, a bigger victory to them over being TCU?
It's always going to be hard to go to Fall Allen Fieldhouse and win. For OSU, I think they really need to take it one game at a time, and coaches stretched this all season to the team and to media as well. So because TCU's game is first next Tuesday, I believe it's more important for them to win that, because if they win that, and if they were to win against Arkansas tomorrow, you're riding a 2-game winning streak going to Kansas. You're going to have a little bit of momentum that you haven't had since the beginning of the season because of the Big 12 plays. They've been up and down. They haven't won consecutive games since league play has started. So if you can win that TCU game and possibly even win against Arkansas tomorrow, that's going to give a lot of momentum heading forward, and I think it'll mean a little bit more than if you were to not win against TCU but win against Kansas. It's still a big win, but I think it'll be more if you win TCU first to get momentum going into that game.
I'll put you on the spot a little bit about the Big 12 specifically. Joe Lunardi came out, releases his latest bracketology. Only 6 Big 12 teams in. Do you think that's fair for this conference that is arguably the best conference? Now, you can make arguments about team size and only 10 teams in the Big 12, but regardless, one of the best conferences, only 6 teams. Does that seem a little light to you?
This conference is tearing itself apart. I mean, I tweeted earlier in the year the Big 12 champion is going to have 5 losses in conference play, and that's regular season. And, I mean, Kansas has 2 losses right now. They're leading. There's 3 teams with 3 losses or 4 teams with 3 losses. And so it's going to be difficult to win in this conference. 6 teams is a good number. There were 7 in last year. I could see 7 getting in again this year. But one of those bottom-tier teams, OSU, Texas, Kansas State, one of them is going to have to step up, and they're going to have to play really well down the stretch if they want to be that 7th team that can get in.
What does OSU have to change on offense? I'm going to keep it simple that way.
It's got to be ball movement. There's times this is when they're not that great against a zone. They're not that great against the zone defense. Their zone offense has been poor in Big 12 play. There's times where they'll just stand and dribble the ball and they'll settle for a 3-pointer. And OSU, Mike Boynton keeps saying they're a great shooting team, but the numbers aren't quite showing that. Against Texas Tech in the first half, they did shoot the ball really well, but when it came down to it in the second half, the shots stopped falling. Texas Tech came back, took the lead, and OSU didn't have an answer. They've got to get better at running against a zone defense.
So I know Jourdan and I kind of discussed this a while ago, actually earlier this week. Real quick, who of your roster players, who do you feel has kind of been dropping the ball the most so far on this roster? Real quick.
I don't even know if you can really put the blame on one person, because Kendall Smith has had his up and down games, but then again, he's the sole reason OSU has 2 of their 3 Big 12 victories against Iowa State and Oklahoma, hitting 2 buzzer beaters in those games. Brandon Averette has had up and down games. Everybody's had up and down games. I think you need a little bit more scoring consistently from Lindy Waters. I think that would help. Mitchell Solomon being more aggressive on offense, getting more opportunities would definitely help. And Yankuba Sima has really stepped up. He's probably been the one who's really stepped up the past couple games in league play, especially on defense, and that's really helped this team. But I think there's not just one person who hasn't played that well.
Well, thanks, Cam. We appreciate it. We got some good talk there from the OSU men's basketball, who, again, heads to Arkansas this weekend. We're going to take a quick break. Next, we're talking some big news in the NBA, plus some talk on the OKC Thunder. So stick around. This is OSU Student Radio, the Border Battle on KXZY. Welcome back to the Border Battle. We're broadcasting live from Studio 318 in the Paul Miller Journalism Building here at Oklahoma State. We're broadcasting on Suddenlink Channel 112, KXZY Student Radio here at OSU. Back in studio here with Chris. Chris, some big news in the NBA. We just saw some highlights there. We'll get to the Thunder in a second, but I wanted to start out with some interesting news here because I think this is going to affect a lot of people, including maybe some casinos in Oklahoma that might not agree with stuff like this. And the NBA, there's a case going on on the East Coast about sports betting and whether it should be legalized or whether we should keep it the way it is. And the NBA has proposed a plan that it says we've been researching, whatever researching sports betting means. They've been researching it, and they want to have 1% of all wagers, if this is legalized, to go to them. They want 1% of it, of all wagers placed on its product. So they have to be bets on the NBA, and they want 1%. My first question to you is, do you see any casino or any gambling institution giving up 1% and giving it to the NBA?
I don't. As much as I want to try and be the devil's advocate and say, oh, yes, they will, I don't see any reason why you would. I mean, you have to look at it not even as a casino standpoint, as your own personal standpoint. If you had a bunch of money, if you had a good business, would you really be, for all the hard work you're putting in, is it really fair to also be, I'm going to give 1% to this entity because, they're just helping me make money? It's so... I mean,
but that entity is bringing in more business for you now, and it's legalized.
I know, but I see it as that's my money. But that's me. I'm a very conservative. I want to keep track of all my finances and all that stuff. For me, I'd say no. I'd be not a chance. Am I willing to do that?
So the NBA, who, by the way, is going to bring in a lot more money for you with people gambling on their events.
Yeah.
You don't want that money. You'd rather say, no, we'll keep that money even though it's going to be billions of dollars because we don't want to give you 1% of it.
If I have enough money coming in from all my other stuff, I'm totally okay with that. I get the NBA is a huge, huge business. I understand that. It's just like NFL, any of the professional organizations. I understand that. But heck no, if I'm making enough money with the casino, not a chance.
You're just going to turn down money.
You're right. I will. I would.
Okay, well, here's the other part of so that's part of control, right? They're giving up money. They're giving up 1%. The NBA also wants there to be kiosks just out and about, and they also want smartphone apps that you can bet on, which, by the way, I'm sure there are places on the worldwide dark web that you can go find a smartphone app and do that illegally right now. But that's the big argument is, do we want all this illegal money in offshore books, which is how everyone's doing it? And 97%, I think the last study that came out is still 97% of sports gambling is illegal. And this is stuff you could tax, and I'm not going to get into whether they should pass it or not. I'm talking strictly, should these casinos or should these gambling institutions be required to give up money to NBA, to probably NFL, to institutions like that who are bringing in monster dollars? Because just in case you didn't see it, there are 400, count them, 400 prop bets for the Super Bowl alone. Everything from what color is Pink's hair going to be for the national anthem to is she going to be flying during the national anthem to what's the coin toss going to be. All that stuff is bringing in gaga numbers for these people.
So you're saying, just to get on the same page as you, that you would take this 1% without a doubt, without hesitation.
I mean, I would try to obviously negotiate it down, but if it came down to either I was not able to accept the deal or I'd take the 1%, then yes.
See, another thing for me that would make me nervous is if there's a small print. How do I know the NBA isn't going to put something in this clause that gives them more of the power?
Well, I'm going to assume that I'm assuming that my legal team is going to do the proper scanning of these documents and make sure it's 1% and it's locked in there. Because the upside of that 99%, the more profit that we're going to get from this is so much more astronomical that if we're giving up 3%, say to the MLB, NFL, and NBA, and maybe the 4%, maybe you give 0.5% or 0.25% to the NHL and MLS because they're not that big money. They aren't bringing in that much.
Fair enough.
I think you have to. I think it's a no-brainer. I'll give up 4% to all these leagues and then be able to say, guess what? I'm getting 96% of money that was probably not going to come in. It was going to go to some offshore book. You know what I mean? The only people that this really impacts, the only people in my mind, is Vegas. Because they've been having this legal stuff going on forever. So now if all of a sudden the NBA and NFL want to, chintz off that, I understand Vegas's problem with that, but not all these other ones, because it's not legal right now.
Right.
So they can't offer it.
You're seeing it as a benefit for these small market casinos.
Yeah, you
in
bet.
a sense, these states that just deal with this, where, like you said, then Vegas is where everything's going to hit the fan, so to speak.
Yeah, well, and who knows if you can always separate that. Vegas has always kind of been separate in several different ways that we won't get into. But look at these. I just think that if you can tax all this, the government has some impact, is impacted by this. These casinos have a big bump in pay. All of these new ways you can do it. By the way, I love the idea of, if it's legal, smartphone apps and kiosks. Heck, I think it should be in the stadiums. You want to go get a hot dog at halftime? Well, guess what? You can also take the under in the second half of 25. You know what I mean?
I get it, but
it's just there are so many more options to go from this. And again, I'm not advocating for them to pass this or against it. I'm just saying if it happens, because it looks increasingly like it's going to happen. I think it's just a matter of time before this becomes legalized, because it's all the money is moving offshore. And I don't think you can have that because it's too hard to police. So I think you get out ahead of it, be proactive instead of reactive, and this is a perfect way to do it. I think the NBA, Adam Silver, you could argue he's the best commissioner in all of pro sports, and this is another tick in the box why.
Yeah, I whatever you say, I guess. I'm still, like I said, I'm still like, nope, I ain't going to do that, but that's me.
All right, well, let's talk some Thunder then, since you've exhausted that. So let's talk Thunder. They get the win last night. What do you think about this win? Obviously, there are some people concerned with how close it was, et cetera, et cetera.
Again, and we've talked about this earlier this week. To me, I preached this earlier in the show. It's consistency, like this whole up and down, and I don't know. I still think Westbrook is still struggling with his new team. And I get it. They weren't meant to, Paul George, Anthony, they weren't all meant to gel. No one expected them to gel super fast. But this sense of Westbrook is still in that I still need to do everything mode. I don't know. There's still a little bit of friction to me that is holding them back fully.
See, I'm going to contradict you there. I think he needs to be in that mode. He needs to be in the I'm doing everything mode. I think that was the problem earlier in the year. I think Russ was saying, you know what? I got 2 All-Stars now. I have to share the ball with them. We have to get, that's the way we're going to get this thing all sorted out. Well, then he realized, no, I can score. Sometimes I do need to score 46. He scored 46 last night.
On 29 shots, though. Like, that, to me, that's another thing. Do you really need to take that many shots? Like, if you're efficient and can get 46, sure.
So but 19 and 29 is a heck of a lot better than Paul George 6 of 19.
I know, but I don't.
I think you do have to keep Russell Westbrook aggressive. I think he's the best player on the team. I think he's a bona fide leader, and quite honestly, he's the best bet for the Thunder. Is he not?
He is, and I guess the thing, it'll work as long as Paul George and Carmelo Anthony are willing to put their ego aside. I think Anthony's done a very good job. Don't get me wrong. I think Anthony's done well. He stepped in when he felt his number's been called. I think right now a lot of it deals with Paul George. Especially with being, I think he was snubbed from the All-Stars.
He was.
So there's that whole thing of, I feel like he's still now trying to almost do like a hero ball thing of, I need to be in charge. I need to show that it's their fault that I didn't make it onto this All-Star team.
Yeah, and that's always what you run into is people trying to prove things. I think Russ Westbrook needs to be the one with that attitude. Well, we'll get to a break. We'll be right back. A new class has been enshrined in the Baseball Hall of Fame. We'll tell you who and maybe who should have next on the Border Battle on KXZY.
Hi, I'm Gina Noble, and I'm the mayor of Stillwater, Oklahoma. Stillwater, Oklahoma is anything but still. We are a vibrant community, and we are conveniently located near Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Wichita, Kansas. We're the home of the Oklahoma State Cowboys, and we serve as the cultural, economic, and athletic hub for North Central Oklahoma. In fact, several Quality of Life magazines have recognized Stillwater as one of the nation's 100 top places to live and one of the best places to golf. Established in the land run in 1889, Stillwater is a safe, vibrant community. It boasts a great educational system from K through 12, all the way up to our world-class university, Oklahoma State University. We have an exceptional downtown with a strong entrepreneurial spirit, numerous city parks and trails, and our medical resources are second to none. Stillwater is a wonderful place to begin your career, to start a business, to raise a family, or to retire. We invite you to visit Stillwater because we are anything but still.
Think you're not involved in your community? Think again. Spending your money with local businesses is more than an economic choice. It's a way you can have a say in the look and feel of your hometown. This spring, I invite you to shop in downtown Stillwater. Downtown Stillwater is home to locally owned shops, boutiques, eateries, and dependable professionals that you can trust. Find the perfect gift for your graduate, have a delicious meal with mom, or just stop in to enjoy great spring savings. By creating a demand for local goods and services, you can ensure a place for the local businesses that help give our community character and keep it unique. On behalf of Downtown Stillwater, thank you for shopping local.
Well, Chris, let's get back into it. Welcome back. Chris Notch, CJ, join me, Jourdan King. It's the Border Battle on KXEY OSU Student Radio. We're broadcasting from Studio 318, broadcasting on Suddenlink Channel 112 as well. You can catch us on there. If you're into watching us, that's a good idea, I think.
Yeah,
Anyways, Chris, Hall of Fame class comes out. Let's jump into it. Chipper Jones, Vlad Guerrero, and Jim Thome, and Trevor Hoffman. Who was the greatest out of these guys? Who's your favorite? Let me start with that.
Oh man, that's a tough one. How? Because Jim Thome used to play for the Twins, okay? So I have a little sentimental value with Jim Thome, okay? He hit the first ever walk-off in Target Field. I mean, there's just that. I watched that game happen. Like, I watched when that happened. Like, for me, that's something I hold. But Chipper Jones, like, class act, he reminds me most of Cal Ripken. You know, Cal Ripken kind of they get the same treatment. You know, they play the game. They're always consistent. Chipper Jones dealt with injuries towards the end here and there. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. But I think either one of those two would be my tops. I'm really split. I give Chipper the edge, but Thome's right there because of the sentimental value.
Chipper Jones was one of the most fun baseball players to watch.
You know what Thome was?
I think in a long time. No, Jim Thome wasn't because he stood at the plate and raked home runs and didn't do much else, which is fine. That was his job. I'm just saying it was fun to watch Chipper Jones. One of the best switch hitters in all of baseball over the course of all time. You can't argue that.
I won't. I'll give you that.
And by the way, if you're going to take Jim Thome, then the Brewers are going to claim Trevor Hoffman too, even though he's going to go in as a Padre, obviously, and only played 2 seasons in Milwaukee. But that was a cool experience to have him in Milwaukee for a couple of years. I wanted to get your thoughts on Vlad Guerrero, because some people don't think he should have been in.
Yeah.
Or at least this early.
I kind of agree. I know they said a lot of it with Springboard is when he was with the Expos is like, everyone said that was like his time. That's when he was really good. Heck, he's going in wearing an Angels hat.
That's weird.
Which I find super weird because everyone was like, oh, he should go Expos. Granted, I know they're not an organization now, but still, like, that's where he made his biggest impact. I feel though, and I could be wrong here, but I felt like he was also shadowed with the whole PED thing. I think people thought potential steroids.
I'm not sure.
But, let's be real. Vlad's been out for a while, too, out of the league, I guess. I don't know. I guess I never, I didn't hate him as a player, but it's not like he was one of my favorite players either. I think he played the game, but...
Doug Gottlieb said something yesterday that I really couldn't figure out a way to I couldn't find a counterpoint to it. And by the way, Doug Gottlieb, obviously Oklahoma State alumnus and something everyone that wants to go into radio should probably strive to be coming out of Stillwater for sure. And he does a great job for Fox Sports Radio. But he said, if you're the best at something, you should be in the Hall of Fame. and Vlad Guerrero is the best bad pitch hitter in all of baseball history. And he's got a point.
Yeah.
Vlad Guerrero would take swings from his knees. Like, he and Adrian Beltre are like the kings of doing that.
And they'd hit him out of the park.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be just like a little bloop single.
Absolutely.
It'd be like power with his hits.
Absolutely. So I think it was maybe a little touch early for Vlad, but you look at him, he was a solid defensive outfielder. He had a cannon, and he was all about power. He threw the ball with power. He hit the ball with power. And quite frankly, when he was on, he was one of the best hitters per year in baseball. So I think he had to go in at some point. Now is as fine as any.
Well, so let me ask you this to kind of go off with the whole steroids things. What are they supposed to do with Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, like Sammy Sosa, those guys? What are they supposed to do? Manny Ramirez? Like, what does the committee do here?
Well, here's the thing. I think I might be a bad person to ask because I'm not a huge baseball fan. I'm not one of them people that looks at the Hall of Fame as the hallowed hall that some people do. Like, they even say it like that. Like,
Right.
that's not even like, but no, this is all part of MLB's history. And quite frankly, the MLB let it happen. So if you're going to let people that maybe have some sort of tie to it, and then you're not going to let people because people think there's a stronger tie to it, like, I just don't understand that.
Right. Like, they're kind of, well, I know they said too, like with Mike Piazza and Pudge Rodriguez getting in, that they're like, well, that should open the door for people. My whole thing is if you were caught with it, I don't think you deserve it, because in that sense, you did cheat to get to where you're at. Granted, it's hard because they haven't really ever caught a bunch of people. Like, I know Manny Ramirez, I think, got caught twice in the span of 2 years or something, or 3 years, whatever it was. But I think, if anything, that's the line that's got to be of you know, if you were caught, like, you don't deserve to be in. If you don't know, you know, it's.
See, I disagree. I disagree with you there, because I think whether you get caught or whether there's some loose ties to it, you were probably taking steroids, and there are people in the hall that were probably taking steroids. Right, there are people in the hall right now that were probably taking steroids.
So you think no matter what, Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, they should just get in?
They should both be in. Look at their stats.
Yeah, but if Barry Bonds,
look at their stats.
Okay, yes, home run king, I get it, all that. But if you were caught taking steroids, I get it. Like, the whole argument here is because people that are already enshrined in there probably dealt with it, probably took steroids.
Yeah,
I get that. But at some point, the Hall of Fame, everyone needs to kind of cut ties and be, okay, we need to restart. Like, somehow this needs to reset.
So you're just going to forget about a chunk of history because you're not proud of it?
No, that's
that's the argument here, isn't it?
No, well, I'm just saying the MLB, everyone needs to just be like, hey, we made a mistake. I get it what you're saying about, they're cutting out history.
Sure. But
at the same time, where does this line, like, where does this end? Like, that's my whole thing here. Either if you are going to accept them all, then you got to somehow rebrand, like, yep, we're the Hall of Fame that's okay with steroid users.
Well, then you say, you put in these guys and you say, well, look, by the way, there's always notes and there's exhibits about these players too. You say, look, Barry Bonds is in the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Famer based on his performance on the field. Was it maybe enhanced? Yes, you admit that. I don't understand why you forget about something if you are a league like the MLB. You can't just forget about things you're not proud of. That's all part of your history. They've tried to forget and make people forget about the Chicago Black Sox. That scandal when they threw the game.
Right.
They try to make people forget about that for forever. It's part of your history. You have to deal with it.
Then that's fine. Then if anything, what the Hall of Fame I feel needs to do then is they need to have in the Hall of Fame, they need to have sections set off of, like, almost like the steroid era, so to speak. And I haven't been there, so I don't know if they already have that there or not. But, like, okay, you're gonna walk down into this room, and this is everyone that is linked potentially or has been caught using steroids, that stuff, and then have them up there and have their reasonings. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily have to separate them, but there's plenty of ways to let people know these people were maybe not the most people that acted with the most integrity to the game, right? I think that's the best way you can deal with it. Well, we're gonna move on to another baseball story because we have to. And
Why? Because the Brewers.
it's the Brewers.
No one cares.
You know, it's been a long time, if ever, that I've hit the home button on ESPN, and the two top headlines were both Brewer headlines. Yesterday,
Probably first and last, huh?
yeah, yesterday, the top two were Brewer headlines because they acquired Christian Yelich from the Marlins and gave up 4 prospects, including top prospect and center fielder Lewis Brinson, who is about to graduate from the academy. And then they go and they sign Lorenzo Cain. By the way, Lorenzo Cain was a Brewer. He was a Brewer and then got traded to the Royals, and then all in a roundabout way ends up back with the Brewers, and they signed him to a 5-year, $80 million contract, so about $16 million a year. So you have those two under control for the next 5 years. My question to you is, was this a big enough splash to catch the Chicago Cubs?
I don't know. I was kind of going to ask you kind of that same realm, except for to kind of rotate it. Are the Brewers right now in, I don't want to say sellout mode, but like we need to do everything we can right now to try and catch up with the Cubs. Like our time is now. If we don't take some chances right now, we're done. We've kind of lost that window. Is that kind of what the Brewers are doing right now?
Well, I think there's two things to this, and I think they're both important. Is obviously David Stearns did not like the development he was seeing that some teams did from Lewis Brinson and some of their top prospects. So he said, you know what? We got a chance here to go get a good prospect. Let's do it. We got him for 4 or 5 years here with the team control. So that's when he says, okay, well, we got Yelich. I think it's time to hit the gas pedal a little bit. Let's go get Cain. We get Lorenzo Cain. Now all of a sudden, everything starts to steamroll. Now you got 5 starting quality outfielders. You're going to see another trade. The Brewers are going to pick up a pitcher yet. And I don't know who it is, and I don't know who they're going to trade to get him. But I think the Brewers are going to pick up a starting pitcher yet. And all of a sudden, the weak spot in their team now is the starting pitching. If they can get that rolled around, the bullpen was strengthened this offseason. The hitting was just strengthened last night. All of a sudden, if you're a Cubs fan, you got to be a little bit nervous with what the Brewers are doing.
So then do you feel, they're picking up these players to then maybe make a package deal? Like their whole goal right from the start, they found a pitcher they liked that they're from whatever team, and they're like, okay, this team's going to maybe need this, this, and this. So, like you said, the Brewers could have 5 potential,
Starting outfielders.
Starting outfielders. Did they get 2 extra just to be like, hey, let's try and get a starting pitcher. Let's take 2 of these, and now we're going to go to this team that we think needs them.
No, you're not trading Yelich and Cain.
No, but I'm just saying,
yes,
like, you pick them up, 100%. And then 2 other guys you
yes.
have, like, hey, these 2, we're going to try and package them out for a pitcher that we want.
I think you're spot on there. I think that is 100% what they were trying to do, was a starting pitcher in mind this whole time. But you got to remember, too, they still wanted to maintain a good offense, which they had last year. They still have Shaw under team control for the next several years. You look at it, and it's suddenly not being such a bad thing to be associated with Milwaukee Brewers like it was for such a long time. And that's exciting for people from Wisconsin.
So do you think with these additions to the team, and then if they get a quality starting pitcher, do you think they will contend with the Cubs for the division?
This year they will. If they can get starting pitcher this year, they will. Here's my problem, and here's the second point I was going to bring up. You know who's going to win the race for Bryce Harper if it's not Washington?
Probably the Cubs.
It's going to be the Cubs now, because the Yankees won the deal for Giancarlo Stanton. So the Yankees aren't going to have enough. Well, never say the Yankees are going to have enough money.
Yeah, never say never with them.
Yeah, you can't say that. But theoretically, you wouldn't think they can pay Giancarlo Stanton and all their players, and then, by the way, Judge coming up and Sanchez coming up, and then also get Bryce Harper. So, yeah, I think there is plenty.
So also let me ask you, besides the Cubs, obviously we know the Yankees are always big. Do you think the Red Sox would be out of it because now of them going after J.D. Martinez? I know it's not the same position, but do you think that the Red Sox just don't see Harper fitting in well with their team?
Do you see Bryce Harper as a Red Sox? I just don't.
I mean, I don't, but it's a weird thing if you think about it. Like the Red Sox are usually any top free agent, it's Red Sox, Yankees, and then you have someone from the National League really trying to contend with that as well.
Yeah, I think there's probably 2 top teams from each league: the Yankees and Red Sox, and the Dodgers and Cubs. Right. So I think that's something that's important to, to your point, is to mention that.
But it's rare to think that the Red Sox haven't even made an effort. Like, that's what I'm getting to the point here. Is like, and granted, we know the Yankees, they won't, but, that.
Yeah. And perhaps the biggest news is that Milwaukee actually switched up their official bratwurst of the Milwaukee Brewers from Clements to Johnsonville. So the Clements Racing Sausages will be rebranded next year. Had to end on that. Thanks for joining us today. Tune in again next Monday. We're coming back next Monday. Good show planned for you. For CJ, I'm Jordan King. Thanks for listening. We're on Suddenlink Channel 112 and OSU Student Radio, KXZY.
Hi, I'm Gina Noble, and I'm the mayor of Stillwater, Oklahoma. Stillwater, Oklahoma is anything but still. We are a vibrant community, and we are conveniently located near Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Wichita, Kansas. We're the home of the Oklahoma State Cowboys, and we serve as the cultural, economic, and athletic hub for North Central Oklahoma. In fact, several Quality of Life magazines have recognized Stillwater as one of the nation's 100 top places to live and one of the best places to golf. Established in the land run in 1889, Stillwater is a safe, vibrant community. It boasts a great education